85. My name is Dave, and I'm joined by Michael.
How's it going, Dave? You have returned. We're back on Twitch. Look at this. All is right with the world.
Yes, I have. Thank you to Chris, and thank you to Josh for picking up my slack as I was opening up a brand new store. So if you I think I posted it on Twitter, but I know on Facebook and Discord there's some updates about the kind of what I went through. So, full disclosure, today is July 18th, and I got home today at 5:30, and I have just finished 19 consecutive days in a row of work. So, and I am off tomorrow. So I appreciate everyone's patience with letting me, or being cool with me taking a couple weeks off, and you guys downloaded it and got some new perspectives and some. It's always nice to hear from Josh, and you've known Chris significantly longer than I have, but yeah. I've had a couple interactions with Chris as well. He's an awesome guy. So, both of them being willing to take the time out of their busy days to do that is helpful, and it's good to know that we can, myself or Michael can, take a week here, a week there off, and we have enough resources and friends and people in the industry that are willing to step in and help us out. So thank you again to them for that. Much like Michael mentioned, we are on Twitch, so you are listening to Digital Days Gaming. It's a weekly podcast that posts on podcast services. If you're listening to us, as you said, over the last week or two, you know how to find us. So if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. If you want to watch us live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where we are live. Michael just chose not to hit the button, but what is
I almost did it. I almost did it for Josh. I was like configuring it, and I was just like, nah, I'm not going to do it.
I mean, to be fair, like all the stuff I've set up with OBS is like foolproof right now. I have just a bunch of different things I click on and we just go. So there's no setup for me anymore.
Yeah. So. I would have to do the configuration, and then I'd be like, I do have updated stuff that I could use, and then it'd just be a mess.
Yeah. So, but we are back live on Twitch, so you can follow us on Twitch. That's free. You can subscribe to us. That's free as well. You can subscribe to us on podcasting. That's free. If you link your Amazon account and your Twitch account, you do get a free sub on Twitch if you want to use that. And everything else is linked in the show notes. And I'm gonna jump right back into the news that apparently decided to just pause all stuff that was going on while I was gone.
It was perfect. It just nothing happened in the 2 weeks that you were gone up until the last. I think I had finished recording with Josh. The next day hit, and then the news came again. So it was on your watch that we're going to talk about all of this, and it is kind of funny because the main story obviously is going to be the Activision Blizzard acquisition that Microsoft is going to be able to close on, and then it just cascaded of just like so many follow-up news items within like a day or so. But yeah, the FTC has lost their case against Microsoft. Microsoft is now free to close the deal, though the FTC is they tried to appeal, that failed. Basically, they were just told, like, you didn't make a good first impression, like first case, so it seems like a waste of time and money to pursue it further. The FTC looks like they're going to look into it a little bit more, but for the most part, Activision, Microsoft, they can close the deal. I think this week, there's some word that they might delay it a little bit, like renegotiate like that deadline that was floating around for the $3 billion, just so they can negotiate with the CMA. But yeah, the FTC kind of embarrassed themselves during that ordeal, and it was so bad that like the CMA, as soon as that decision came out, was like, hey, we're going to negotiate with Microsoft now. Like CMA looks like they were hoping FTC would do the work. And
this deal is done. Like the papers have been signed. There's a couple little, I'm going to use a sports analogy. Like Activision Blizzard has to pass their physical.
Like, basically, yeah. And the physical is like they might outsource the cloud gaming only in the UK, which is like the biggest like joke of just like, we're not going to benefit from it in the UK.
Yeah, they're gonna notice that Microsoft has a little bit of damage to its knee tendon, and they're gonna say like, hey, like we're gonna write something in your contract out in case this knee gets worse, that we're covered.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what's going on from a sports analogy standpoint. It was very interesting, like the timing, where the I'm gonna get it wrong, but the circuit court judge was at I feel like he was like going home for a Friday, and he's like, yeah, you know what, I'm not hearing this.
Yeah, she basically, it was before July 4th.
I'm sorry.
It was basically before July 4th that they're like, hey, holiday's coming up, but don't worry, I'm not going to take several weeks to do this. So it's like literally July 4th gave them an extra like 2 days off, and then they just came in like I guess it was sealed. The decision was sealed days before we found out, and then it became public,
right,
of what was going on. So the judge kind of made it clear during that final day that it's just like, hey, I think it was very clearly stated multiple times by the judge of like, I see how this hurts PlayStation, but you have not made a good case on how this hurts consumers, which is the whole point of
the FTC.
Yeah, and that was 100%. Like, it was very PlayStation focused, and it was a bad take. Like, Dave, I think we both agree it's like good that FTC does this sort of stuff, but like if you're gonna do this, you have to make a better case. Like it's good that the FTC like pokes at some of these acquisitions.
Yeah, but I think the FCC needs to look at it because they want to look at it, not because Sony asked them to look at it.
And that's the thing, is like they need to look at it from like a companies are monopolizing sort of perspective, but it very much seems like they only did it because PlayStation asked them to for so they just, I don't know if they half-heartedly did it or they just didn't take it serious because it's video games, because I feel like I've seen these before and they're usually way more on top of their shit. And then for this one, it just seems like whatever slides PlayStation gave them, they're like, okay, let's run with it.
Yeah. It's super fascinating to see just how I'm trying to think of the right way to word this, but how out of touch some people can be with newer forms of media. This isn't like General Motors buying Chevy or something like that, where that people have been dealing with the auto industry for 100 years, or like other things that have like the other things that maybe the FTC should look into as these other companies have become juggernauts, like the Amazons of the world and the Disneys of the world, and but I just feel like they stop certain things and say that you have to do something, and they did it years and years ago. Like I've told this before, but I worked for Foot Locker. And they used to be called Venator. They used to be called Venator Group, which was affiliated with Woolworth stores, going all the way back to that, like those old Woolworth convenience stores. And anyways, so like as they changed and progressed, they were acquiring other companies. At the time they owned Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, Lady Foot Locker, Champ Sports, and they were attempting to purchase Foot Action, another shoe store similar to like Finish Lines of the world and stuff. And I believe it was the FTC or the Federal Trade, which is the Federal Trade Commission. It was somebody that came to them and said, if you acquire Foot Actions at its current state, you will hold too high of a you'll hold too high of a percentage in the market, so you can't do that. And I think Foot Locker asked what the number would be for them to, like, essentially what the number of locations could they purchase from Foot Action to be under that number. And the judge gave them a number, and Foot Locker waited for Foot Action as a struggling company to close X amount of locations until they fell below that threshold, and they bought them and got it approved, and then proceeded to open more locations.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the CMA is asking Microsoft to do in the UK in terms of the cloud stuff, of just like, hey, maybe if you're not in charge of the cloud stuff in the UK, we'll go ahead and do this deal. And it's just like, well, they're still going to profit from it. It's just a third party is going to be
or they say okay, and they give it to a company that they know is going to drop the ball in the next 4 to 5 years, and then they're just going to be like, oh, due to circumstances, we feel it's in our best interest for us to resume the cloud gaming thing.
At that point in time, the small company that now takes care of it.
But at that point in time, the CMA couldn't really do anything about it, because they could, but that would be a smaller merger that really wouldn't go on their radar. Yeah. So it's just a reshuffling of cards. That's all it is.
And that's basically what the CMA stuff is going to come down to, is how are they going to shuffle that deck, and how is everything going to play out. But at least to the CMA's credit, they saw an angle in this acquisition, which is kind of reasonable. It's like, hey, the cloud market is still forming, and Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard could really begin the monopolization of that market for Microsoft, which Microsoft has done forever. So at least CMA saw that as an opportunity of like, hey, we can make a case here. And the FTC, as far as I listened to a lot of that trial, and the cloud stuff never really came up. It just came down to PlayStation every time, and that ultimately just like screwed them over in terms of like if they wanted to really make a go of it, they could have gone to CMA route, and then you would have had two nations, focused on this one aspect, and that could have led to like some sort of result that they were looking for. But instead, here we are, and it's just it's gonna be a pretty wild time. How this is all going to go, because Dave, I don't remember like when Activision or when Bethesda closed, it was only like maybe 2 months, 3 months before we got all the stuff coming to Game Pass and decisions were being made. So I assume we're kind of in that point. Deal's not officially closed yet, but
they've had plenty of time to work out this stuff of like, hey, we need to get this stuff ready for when it goes through.
We will talk about some of that in like two stories.
We're starting to see some of it already. So it's super, super interesting just to see what's going on. But I'm just glad that it's I'm glad it's done. I'm kind of burnt out on this. Is like a 14. What has this been? A 14 or 16 month process since this was announced.
It's getting there. Yeah, I think it was like early 2022 thing. So we're at that point.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But okay. So FTC loses their case. They lose their appeal the same day. Phil Spencer took to Twitter to say PlayStation has agreed to a 10-year deal for Call of Duty to remain on that platform. So the deal is only for Call of Duty, by the way. This was confirmed with like PlayStation reps and Xbox reps. And that's important because originally the deal that Xbox offered to PlayStation was for all Activision Blizzard games that are like have franchises currently on PlayStation to continue forward, only up until 2027, but like that's either here nor there. But it sounds like
that's the believed end of the console generation.
Yeah. Which
like that's the
would make sense
thing
to renegotiate. But now this new deal that PlayStation had to sign, it was only for Call of Duty games, and it is 10 years to 2033. I would have loved to be in that room when like that. It wasn't done in person, but when that email went through to PlayStation of like, hey, here's the new terms of our deal. It's only Call of Duty. It's nothing else. It's
or the other way around when Sony responded to the email that's been sitting in their inbox for like 4 months or whatever, and said, "Hey, we're good," and Microsoft's like, not so fast."
Yeah,
like circumstances have changed. So.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that like that detail was changed, but it just makes sense. Microsoft is now in a position that they can call the shots as opposed to before the merger was approved or going to close, that they were just like, okay, yeah, all Activision Blizzard games to 2027 can stay on this platform and future entries can stay on the platform. But it just being Call of Duty must have been kind of this is the type of stuff that I feel like when Jim Ryan's contract gets extended or whatever, when it's that time to renegotiate, this will be brought up potentially.
Yeah, but
I don't think he's going anywhere, but it's just one of those
things. I don't either, but
I
also don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. So, like, two things, like, ultimately that I think are going to happen. One, I think Microsoft is going to dramatically slow the Call of Duty development timetable down. They're going to slow it down a lot, and doesn't mean that we're going to get less Call of Duty, but I think you're actually going to see Call of Duty be like a full, almost go like a more of a full live service game than a box product right now, which is it has been an annualized box product with Warzone as a free to play live service. I think you will see eventually you'll see much heavier seasonal style content every 90 days. I don't think like we're gonna like, let's just call it Modern Warfare 3 that comes out. To be honest with you, I don't even think this November. Like it is. Yeah. Okay.
They were showing it to NBA players during Summer League, so it exists.
All right. So after Modern Warfare 3, like if Modern Warfare 4 is on the table, it's 2025.
Yeah.
At the earliest.
So I agree with you. I do think because of the way Activision Blizzard has been doing things, I think what you're saying is still like 3 years away because of how they have everything cycled. I think because we already know Modern Warfare 3 would probably be like you said, like 2-3 years away. because they will have something in between that. But I do think there is going to be like a slowdown during this 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
Whether it's in 3 years or if it's in 5 years, just because of
if Black Ops 5 is on the agenda, it's 2027.
Yeah,
versus 2025.
Yes.
And so
I wonder what that does to like the war zones and stuff. I know they're retiring old Warzone and have new Warzone. Is Microsoft going to look at that and be like, you know what? It's not hitting as much as we want. And
I think it frees up these talented Activision studios to do hi-fi rush style games, which is what Microsoft wants. Mm-hmm. They want something every, they want one kind of, I guess if you really ask Microsoft, they want one hi-fi rush style type game every month.
Yeah.
They do genuinely want it every month. Yeah. Minimum every quarter. Like, ultimate goal is if they can pump out something like you've been talking about, if they can pump out something that's an 8 to 14 hour campaign that has a great story and fun gameplay, and Microsoft's 26 plus studios now that they have can somehow get on a cadence where somebody's releasing something every other month that sells a small amount of copies, either increases Game Pass subscriptions or holds Game Pass subscriptions at a level that they need to be on, then that's what they want. Yeah. Like that's what they want, and maybe that's what the consumer wants, and they just don't necessarily know it yet because we've all been programmed to, I'm going to play Uncharted 3 and I'm going to wait 4 years. I'm going to play Last of Us 1 and I'm going to wait 4 years. Now, yes, I understand that you have Uncharted 1 and then you have Last of Us and then you have Uncharted 2, and I'm not saying that this is the exact order. And then you had a God of War and then you had a Spider-Man and then you had another Uncharted, to where like the other studios were doing that. But how would you feel, Michael, and I'm not saying that Microsoft is at this level yet, but how would you feel if we got an Uncharted Lost Legacy style content from 15 of Microsoft studios every year?
Well, and I would be totally down for that. And I think what you're basically pitching is what Nintendo does now.
Right.
Where Nintendo has not a ton of studios, but their studios are on such a flow that they can release 3 or 4 marquee Nintendo games a year, and also to sit on a bunch of Nintendo games, like full, like how many years were we talking about Metroid Prime remastered being done, finished, waiting to be released, and people be like, why isn't Nintendo release it? It's because Nintendo had other shit in the pipeline. And then they just kind of like, look at this holiday, like you're gonna have Super Mario RPG, and then you're gonna have Wonder something. So like I think kind of what you're pitching is like the Nintendo style of like Nintendo kind of has a major game almost every quarter, almost every month. They have something coming out.
Whether it's a Pokemon game, a Mario game, a Metroid game, even like, it's not that it wasn't a bad game. It wasn't for everybody, but Captain Toad's Adventure,
Pikmin,
like
the Donkey Kong games.
Those things are all fine. They sell great copies, but then they still have their Mario Kart 8. Yeah. That's 4 years old and it's still in the NPD top 10 all the time. Yeah.
you have Tears of the Kingdom, which is a huge, gigantic game. You had to wait a couple years for it, but in between it, how many Zelda remakes did you get? Now that doesn't, like, I'm not sitting there saying that Microsoft, Microsoft now merged with ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard, I am not by any means saying that they can do that content cadence, but I think that's the content cadence that they're going for. That's the goal.
Like,
that would be the goal.
Yeah. Now, can they do it? Can they manage it? Do they have the IPs to support it? Can they come up with the unique IPs? That's all on Microsoft now. Like, that they now have all the pieces. Like, they're building their all-star team, and they got their draft picks and they got their free agents, and now can they get the Phil Jackson that can sit there? Is Phil Spencer the Phil Jackson that can sit there and make all these components and stuff work together to where he can make his, and I don't know why I'm so sport reference heavy today, but make his triangle offense work? Can this triangle game development work? And if it does work and they go on a 6 out of 8 year run where they're producing possibly something as a game of the year quality candidate, then they're okay, because that's kind of what Sony's done too. Sony, Spider-Man 2 is going to be in the game of the year conversation, and I'm sorry, Horizon 2 is not, because
I forgot that came
it's
out
just
too.
Yeah, so it's just not going to be. Doesn't mean that it hurts anything. Gran Turismo is not going to be in that conversation. Spider-Man will be. Starfield will be, and then Super Mario Wonder will be. Like it will. Like those
will win.
Yeah. Yeah. So but now Microsoft has re-earned its seat at the table that they had during the 360 era. Now it's just a matter of what they're going to do with that seat at the table.
Yeah. And don't get it twisted. We know they bought their seat at the table. It's that sort of thing. They threw the checkbook down and were like, hey, take us serious again. Which you can have varying opinions on that. But yeah, they are now back in a conversation, and it is through the acquisition of Bethesda. Starfield is bringing them back to the table, and Call of Duty will do the same in terms of what they can do for it, and also we'll talk about, the future of Call of Duty kind of in 3 stories from now. But it's one of those things where we don't know how viable Call of Duty is going to be. Activision Blizzard, part of the reason they sold themselves is because they're just like, we don't know if it could just be a one-trick pony. But hopefully Microsoft can figure it out.
And the stuff that Activision Blizzard has come out with, but aside from Call of Duty, we're not seeing another Diablo before 2027. We're not seeing another Overwatch before 2027. So that'll be a different conversation. Who knows what the gaming world's going to be like in 2028 and 2029 when they're releasing this stuff. We genuinely have no idea. But in terms of, again, and I've been paying a little bit more attention to sports again the last couple weeks, but in terms of the Florida Marlins or the Miami Marlins have 2 World Series championships. 2. And they've only existed since the mid-90s, early 90s. They bought both of them. They 100% bought both of them. Guess what? Those banners are still hanging. You still walk in there and they're still there. If Diablo wins Game of the Year, which it won't, but if Diablo does win Game of the Year, that plaque or that trophy gets to go in Microsoft's offices.
Yeah.
It goes in Microsoft's offices. It doesn't matter that Diablo was made before the acquisition. They own them now. The only thing that matters is what you've done for them now.
Yeah.
If Starfield wins Game of the Year, which it potentially could, that banner goes in Microsoft's office. It goes underneath Microsoft's kudos, and they get to talk about it.
Financial report, they're like, hey, we won several Game of the Year awards last year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it was Bethesda. It doesn't matter if it was Activision. It's just Microsoft won these awards.
That's just how it functions, and that's how the world is. And it I'm not justifying it, and I'm not saying it's great, but unfortunately, who has the most money gets what they want.
Yeah, it comes down to that, and we'll talk about how PlayStation's reallocating some of their funding right now to kind of combat this. But this 10-year deal, it is funny though. 10-year deals, someone made the joke on Twitter that I think it was from Axios, basically said they look forward to revisiting these stories in 2033 when all these deals expire and it's time to renegotiate. In terms of we don't even know if Call of Duty is going to be that important in 10 years. There's a chance Call of Duty isn't as important and PlayStation's going to be no, we got our own shit. Or, Nintendo's going to be this isn't working anymore for us.
In 2006, did anybody know that a free-to-play battle royale, cartoon shaded, cell shaded game was going to be dominating the market for 5 years in Fortnite? No.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't know where anything's going to go. But again, Microsoft now has so many studios that they could have the next big thing from a team that's working on map packs currently.
Do you think, because I saw some of this going on a little bit when I was looking on social media, do you think that this starts the acquisition wars like you talked about, now that they can, everybody else can point to this? Because now the thing I've been seeing is that are people going to champion Sony when they buy Sega or Square? By the way, which either one of them aren't happening. I don't think Sega or Square is going to be purchased.
No, Sega already kind of said they're not looking to be acquired. Square Enix says they're still open to it, I believe, in some form or fashion. But also Square Enix has so many other different things that Sony probably wouldn't want to get in the market for. I think Microsoft is probably going to chill, not for long, probably for the rest of the year. But PlayStation, I guarantee once this deal closes, within 3 months, PlayStation's going to acquire 1 or 2 more studios that they've already agreed to months ago, but are just hold on, we can't announce until this deal's closed because we're going to look bad in court. But now that this is all clear, I think PlayStation will probably pick up 1 or 2 more studios. Microsoft will probably be on their best behavior for like 6 months. But come 2024, I totally expect Microsoft to be like, yeah, we acquired some random studio here and there. I don't know if it's going to be as big as an Activision Blizzard. I don't know if they want to go through that again, because the FTC trial wasn't necessarily like, hey, FTC, we think we, or the FTC saying, hey, we think we can close this deal. This was more the FTC being like, hey, we're going to try and make an example to scare off other companies in terms of like, hey, look, you're going to have to share your emails. Do you really want to go through the acquisition phase like what Microsoft did? So I don't know if Microsoft's going to want to do that again.
I think the next merger that we see, the next purchase that we see is something to the example of a Respawn trying to do something similar to what Bungie did years ago and kind of buy its freedom and then get purchased.
Yeah.
You know? I'm just using them as an example, as like a marquee developer that, you know,
what IO Interactive did, where they bought their freedom from Square Enix right before Square Enix sold those other studios. Like IO saw the writing on the wall and said, "Let's get out." I can see that. I can also see Embracer Group kind of start shedding some of their studios because it seems like they realized they made a mistake in terms of like acquiring as much as they did. So I could see that, and then of course there's always the Warner Brothers thing, like. Warner Brothers is a mess of a company, and
the peeling off the Mortal Kombat dev. Yeah, you know,
even if it's like,
which name is completely escaping me right now. So,
and even then, I could see that being like, hey, whoever buys them, you get the video game rights for Mortal Kombat, we keep the TV rights and movie rights for Mortal Kombat. Just some sort of deal like that. So I could see that start to happen. I just don't think, like, people were talking because EA basically split themselves into 2 recently, which I didn't put in a news story because it's like not that big a deal to me. But a lot of people are speculating EA separated EA Sports and EA proper into like 2 different entities, but it's still under one umbrella. And people are like, oh, are they going to try and sell the sports branch off or the entertainment branch off? And it's just like, no, they just it's just going to look better. Like,
I just think that they have a different direction they want to go with. Like, they can go back to the EA Sports thing now if they want to, you know, and then you also have EA Originals that they've been pushing with, you know, Immortals, Magic Shooter, and, you know, the Black Panther game that they've announced. And like they just want to, you know, like, I think that, you know, they're realizing that the consumer is confused because I think a lot of people still think, you know, EA is just sports. You know, like that EA Sports thing, they think is what it is. And if you went up to somebody and said, who publishes, you went up to the regular person and, you know, even somebody that's somewhat knowledgeable of video games said, who publishes Battlefield? They'll be like, Battlefield. Like, I don't think they realize it's EA.
They might say DICE faster than they say EA because DICE just has more of a name. Yeah, I think that's a good point in terms of like they just want to reestablish that brand recognition, especially now that they don't have like FIFA. You know, it's EA Sports Football Club, I think.
Presents, or something.
So I think they're just trying to reestablish the brand. And who knows how long, like, I know the Madden family will probably let them use the name forever, but they're probably, like, the backup plan in case the Madden family decides, like, we don't want that to be the name anymore.
I mean, with his passing, who knows what the contract was and how long it goes for.
You know, exactly. And especially, you know, it's no longer him, you know, negotiating that deal. Not that he was negotiating a deal, but it's no longer possibly his lawyers doing it.
Yeah, but he might not have been negotiating a deal, but he might have gone to his agent and said, "Yeah, I want it."
Yeah, no,
and
that's what I mean,
and I'm John Madden. I get what I want, and I want my name to be on there still. And now his kids will be like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Yeah, or they're going to be like, "We want more money." Like FIFA wanted more money, and then EA is going to be like, "No, this EA Sports brand is now bigger than ever." Just bring back EA Big. Just do that for me.
Yeah.
But yeah. This also happened relatively around the time of the deal closing. Our next story, some 360 Call of Duty games had their matchmaking fixed. So Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 3 suddenly had their matchmaking fixed. The online always worked, but matchmaking was completely busted, and most of the servers had a lot of hacking and cheating going on. But magically out of nowhere, those servers were fixed. Matchmaking was turned back on, and now a bunch of people are playing those games online in 2023. Like,
very interesting. How convenient.
Yeah, it's almost like they expect more people to be coming to those games soon because it's going to be more available to people. These games
these games are going to be on Game Pass by Labor Day.
Yeah, this definitely seems like the games are already backwards compatible. So someone must have been like, "Hey, these are going to be in Game Pass. We can't have anything in Game Pass be broken." Though I do think this is a sign that not all the Call of Duty games with multiplayer that still work now are going to be on Game Pass. I think they're fixing the big ones because it's just easier. And something I think is like a little wrinkle that I'm very interested to see what happens is it is not fixed on PC or PS3. And a lot of the things that they talked about was they're going to make sure it's the same experience across multiple platforms for current games and future games. And I wonder if that means they're going to have to go out and fix the PC and PS3 versions.
Nope. Because they've talked about their backwards compatibility technology that they have, that they go and clean up stuff on their end. They can point to this for the last 9 or 10 years. Like, this is what they do. They have the track record for doing this. I agree with you that this sucks, that it may or may not work on PS3 or PC, but I know that people are gonna roll their eyes or hit their steering wheel when they hear me say this. But you want to play the best. You want to play. You want to play Call of Duty. Go get an Xbox and get Game Pass.
Oh, 100%. But I wonder if anyone's going to bring up, this sort of thing. Especially you have like the class action lawsuits going on right now, which are probably going to go nowhere. But you could have something that like a PlayStation could be like, hey, this is obviously we haven't seen a contract, but they could be like, hey, you're breaking the contract, so fix it. Even though like we tried to shut down the PS3 like 2 years ago, fix this. But that also comes down to like, Xbox 360, like that platform was pretty hackable, but they can say like, hey, it's a closed platform still, and we cleaned up what we can. PlayStation, we cleaned it up on our end.
This is before the crossplay stuff too, man. Like, this might be two completely different roads, like, that are just not mergeable. Like,
no, and it could come down to like, hey, we fixed it on our end, but PlayStation needs to do extra work to get it working on their end, and then that could just be PlayStation just being like, we don't find a reason to do this, even though there's still active people on the PS3 playing those Call of Duty games. It's just kind of a mess if you get in there, because a lot of them are pretty hacked up.
Yeah,
but I just love that, like, this is kind of just showing you they all this work was being done in the background because they knew the deal was going to be done. So as soon as that deal, got the green light, we're seeing things happen.
You know what? Where I think where it could get really shitty is if it does come to Game Pass, which I expect it to. So if Black Ops 2 comes to Game Pass and it's on Game Pass PC, and you have to play it through the Xbox store, and that works.
Yes.
Like, that's where it could get, okay, wait, so now it works on PC on this platform, but not on Steam. Like, that's where it could get pretty bad, and Microsoft has a good history with Steam right now.
Yes.
So like that'll get interesting, and then like I almost feel like if they fix it on PC, they have to fix it on PS3 by any correct. Anyways.
So,
but maybe if they just bring it to console Game Pass, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah, and they could use excuses of like, hey, some of those games are tied to. I don't think any of them are tied to Blizzard. Yeah, I think they're all old school Steam games, but they can probably find a way of like, oh, they're tied to Windows 8. Or they use Games for Windows Live, which is a dead service.
They're stuck on BlizzNet.
Yeah, or BattleNet or whatever. Yeah, there's probably ways out of it, but I think you're right. If they fix them on PC, they're gonna have to like find a way to fix them on PS3, just for the hell of it, and then maybe offer those games to come to that PS3 streaming part of premium on PS5. Okay, Dave, this is I guess they're all kind of connected to this acquisition. Xbox Live has been retired. So they finally killed Xbox Live, but I almost feel like it's just being upgraded, more than being retired.
It's only being rebranded. That's all it's being.
Yeah. So Xbox Live is gone, and now there's a new tier to Game Pass, that includes online multiplayer. So the new Xbox Live is basically called Game Pass Core, and includes online multiplayer and a catalog of 25 games that you'll be able to download and stream and play. And then, of course, like the member details, regular Game Pass console still exists for $10.99. PC Game Pass is still $9.99, and then Ultimate's $16.99. So these changes will happen September 14th. So Xbox Live Gold members will automatically become core members. And then the library of 25 games that they're getting, which I just had that up. include Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable, Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon, Halo 5, Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade, Humans Fall Flat, Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of K2, and Elder Scrolls Online. Tamriel Unlimited. More games will be announced closer to that date. But this sounds like they're just doing the PlayStation collection, the thing. And I think this is a way better deal because we talked about for years, Games with Gold sucked. Yep. Games with Gold was a joke. And this takes care of that.
The biggest question is, like, are these 25 games going to rotate? Or is this going to be a locked 25 list? If this is a locked 25 list, then I think this is good. If it rotates, I think it can be a little weird because you could be playing a game and then the next month or the next week you can't be playing the game. Because, similar, if you don't have this, if the game's not on the subscription, then you can't have it. Versus games with gold, as long as you had an active gold subscription, similar to PS Plus, as long as you had an active subscription, whatever the game was released, you had the game. I would be almost okay if they keep if they decide that there's a 20, like a core 20, and then they rotate 5, and they're, on the store or whatever, they're indicated with a different kind of border or something.
If all the third-party games get rotated out, I think that would be kind of acceptable.
I'm fine with this. This is a direct way for them to go, hey, for $1 more, you get this much more games. So this is more or less them pushing more people to Game Pass. I don't think they're going to use this data like people are saying to say that their Game Pass numbers increased. I think that you're grasping at straws of, near the end of the quarter, if they say, oh, our Game Pass subscription number has increased 30 million. Like, I think that's a grasp at straws. Like, I don't really...
They might do that. And they're not going to be wrong because they renamed it Game Pass Core.
Yeah, but PlayStation does the same thing with all the different. They never tell us how many digital consoles or physical consoles we sell, and they say how many PlayStation Plus subscribers they have. They don't tell you how many Tier 3 ones they have.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that. I think that they'll say that we had an increase in Core, and then we've had an increase in Basic, because Phil Spencer has talked about Game Pass PC specifically, independently.
Yeah, that is like their new focus. That's their new pride and joy, because that market's so untapped compared to...
Right.
They already said they've maxed out like the console market because they've only sold so many consoles. So the PC market is like their baby. It's the thing they're going to focus on, which is why, if you didn't want Ultimate and you had a PC and you had an Xbox, the PC Game Pass seems kind of like the better deal.
Right. And now if you have a console, like, I don't know the exact number of games that are on Game Pass currently off the top of my head, but I think it's over 300.
Yeah, I think something like that.
And so now you could get 275 more games for $1 more a month, like from the $9.99 to the $10.99 thing. I think they're just making Game Pass at that point even more appealing. It's like you go and you want a cookie from a store and they're like, hey, it's 1 for 10 or 2 for 12, and you're like, okay, like, I'll just buy 2. Like, very, very few times does somebody say, no, I'm good with 1. Like, I'm okay. Like, nobody wants 1 cookie.
Yeah. It's definitely the, like, when you order food and they're like, oh, you can get a large for an extra $1.
I promise you, whoever goes to buy Core is going to say, hey, just so you know, for $1 extra, you can do this.
Yeah.
Before you check out. So I think that this is them attempting to get rid of Xbox Live entirely, like we've been talking about for a while, that it needs to go away. And this is them just attempting to make it to have it go away. I expect in a year for this Core to go away too. Yeah.
The only thing I would say to that is, like, they want to have a tier just for multiplayer.
They want it. They want a tier for the Call of Duty, bro.
Yeah, so. It's free money for these companies. I know people are always like, oh, multiplayer should be free, and I'm like, yes, I think it should because it is on PC, but it's free money for these consoles. It's why PlayStation shifted from, it was free to play online on PS3, but as soon as PS4 they went, you have to pay for online. It's free money for these companies.
At this point in time, the only other thing I would want Microsoft to do is, like, let me buy something in a 12-month chunk. Like, let me buy a whole year for $90.
So I think you can buy Core in 1 year chunks. But
okay.
Actual
and is
Game
it $120?
Pass, So it looks like it's $9.99 per month or $60 per year. So they are keeping it.
Okay, so it's PS Plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is smart. I wish they would figure out something for Ultimate. I buy Ultimate in 3-month chunks.
Yeah.
Just because there's some websites you can get it for like half off.
Yeah, I will start looking into it. I still pay for Ultimate through my Xbox All Access.
Yeah. Yes.
I haven't. Mine's almost done.
You got you got yours after mine because you had a Series S before that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mine.
I have
finished.
both. I have an S and an X, and my son still uses the S, and he uses Game Pass.
Yeah. Like mine expired in January, and I've just been like waiting. Like I've been doing random deals for like 3-month chunks. I actually recently re-upped it because there was a good sale during Amazon Prime.
But I'm also the kind of person that's going to be like, you know what? I'll pay the $15 a month to not think about it.
Yeah. I trying to get out of being that person.
I am too. Like when I really start looking at, when I write down HBO Max, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime, like when you start really writing it down and like you're like, am I really using this? But there's been times that like tomorrow, like I said, it'll be my first day off. I'll probably skip around 3 streaming services or 4 maybe and watch stuff. Like, and I just don't. I get annoyed. Like if okay, let's say I pause my Netflix subscription for 3 months and then there's something on Netflix I want to watch. Like it's annoying to re-up. It's irritating.
Yeah, no, it's super annoying. I got annoyed because Peacock is no longer free for me. Like they finally took it away from Xfinity
your
users.
WWE expired. Oh, okay.
Yeah, to where I'm just like, I'm not paying $5 for this. I think I ended up paying $5 because my mom's like, Peacock's not working anymore. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I'll get Peacock.
We'll talk. I don't know how many screens I'm allowed to share, but we can talk.
No. So I ended up subscribing to it because my mom would text me being like, I can't watch Yellowstone or something, and I'm just like, okay. Let me get Peacock.
Let's not upset Michael's mom and her shows.
Yeah. I think it was Yellowstone. I forget what show it was, but it was just like, okay, let me get Peacock. But yeah. I like my HBO. Like I think they're going to take HBO Max away from Warner users. So basically, my parents eventually.
Well, I mean, I get it through AT&T through my cell phone provider. I think
they're going to get rid of that feature soon, this year or early next year. And I'm just like, I don't want to pay $15.
I might let that one go.
Yeah, no, that's how I.
Like I have Apple Plus,
but
I have Apple TV or whatever right now because. I swear, like between every 12 to 18 months, either my son or my daughter gets another iPhone or a MacBook or an iPad, and it comes with like a year.
Yeah. I had it for Ted Lasso. My subscription expired, and I didn't watch the last episode of Ted Lasso, and I'm just like, I don't care. Okay, let's move on to the final story. PlayStation is boosting or bolstering its live service R&D budget. So PlayStation in a financial report has reported that they are increasing its research and development costs into live service games to $2.17 billion. This should account for 40% of their R&D budget. As you know, PlayStation said they'll have about 12 games released by 2026 that will fall into the games as a service genre business platform. So yeah, PlayStation is they're going for it, Dave, and seeing just the R&D costs alone is kind of scary of like how much they're going for it.
Well, this is where the hypocritical gamer comes from, and I don't want to go down this line, but so you're mad at Microsoft for spending $7.5 billion to purchase ZeniMax, but you're okay with them spending a quarter of that budget on live service games?
And also like. What does that mean?
What's the difference?
What does that mean? They're researching and developing different live service stuff, and like that market's pretty well.
How about you release one live service game first? One. Yeah. One of your 10.
So, Dave, do you
that you've been touting? One.
Do you think? Like, I'm going to throw you off for a second.
And Bungie doesn't count.
Yeah, Bungie doesn't count, but also that's why you acquired Bungie, to hopefully save you from spending all this money. You know, like Bungie's not the king of live service games, but they know how to do a damn good one. You know, they're no Fortnite. But do you think like this live service thing is a combination of, yes, they want to have the next Fortnite, but also them kind of preparing for life after Call of Duty? Do you think they at least saw the writing?
Yes and no. So I need to watch the whole thing, but there's a GDC conference, like a GDC talk, from Bungie, and yeah, I know whatever. Like, yes, but it was essentially Bungie having a conversation about how their studio evolved from box product to live service product, like how they changed from it. Like, a lot of people get annoyed with a live service game because they're similar to what we just talked about earlier in the show about the Game Pass conversation and the cadence and the development cadence of what like people don't know what they want necessarily or don't know how this is going to look. Even during Destiny's life cycle, Destiny used to be a box product game. You bought Taken King in September, Destiny 1 Taken King, you bought it in September. It was a box. It was on a disc. And you got what you needed, and they didn't have seasonal content, and they did some balance patches, and they did some updates and
some events,
and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like, does Diablo's season cost money?
No, I don't think so. So
Diablo is a box product.
Yeah.
Like, Diablo's not a live service game.
Yes and no. What
you don't have to continue. I think the definition of live service is continuous payment for content.
I think that,
and you're not,
I think. So I would say it's a lot more murkier than it used to be.
I agree, but in terms of
traditional,
if you want to continue to play Destiny's current content, story content, you need to essentially either buy the $100 version every year, or you need to pay $12 every 3 months.
Would you have considered Avengers a live service game because you didn't have to pay for anything to play that content?
No, because it was
in currencies.
Right. That's a game with microtransactions.
Yeah,
and But in order for you to, so here's the difference. Like, could you have purchased Avengers 6 months in and not played the original content and just played the July season 2 content?
I want to say
without purchasing the base content.
But I think when the first thing came out,
right,
you had to play the story.
Like Diablo's season starts like next week, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So can I pick up Diablo next week and pay less than $20 and play what they release next week?
Yeah, I don't think you'd have to pay anything to play that.
No. But I'm saying, like, I don't own the Diablo base. I don't own Diablo 4 at all.
Diablo, yeah.
Right, so that's a box. I have to buy the box.
Yeah, you have to buy the box.
Yeah,
but
my comparison is that you could download Destiny right now and spend $12 and play the stuff that they released in the last 6 weeks right now.
Yeah, you're just grabbing a free-to-play game, basically.
But you can buy the season and play this the seasonal content. You can't buy the season of Diablo.
Yeah, and I would. The only thing I'm like arguing is the games as a service. It's a lot more murkier than like as binary as
right.
Is it this or is it that? Or at least that's where we're at now, and I think that's why PlayStation's putting all this money into trying to figure out what they're moving this like.
It'll be super interesting if we get factions or this the Haven game. Like, is the Haven game going to be something that
I already forgot the name of it? It's like
with
so
the
dollar
have I
sign in it, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember I can't remember Firewalk's game either right now.
Concord, I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of. Damn.
But
Haven.
What I'm saying is, like, 6 months in terms of entry and getting player base, and like whether it's free to play or however they're gonna do this, like, are they gonna be free to play with microtransactions? Are they gonna be free to play where you have to buy seasons? Because Warzone, you could just you could download Warzone and you can buy the season and you can play. You can get to rank 100 and you can stop. Like, you can't do that in Diablo right now.
Yeah.
You have to buy all of Diablo. Yes, I understand that there's some, Destiny's free to play, Fortnite's free to play, Warzone's free to play. Yeah, there's multiple other examples, but anyways, like the transition from the box product to the live service game of getting, increasing your player base and increasing your outreach. Like, Sony needs to release something like soon, like this year. Like, this is kind of getting ridiculous in terms of the conversation that Sony's conversation around live service games is as bad as Microsoft's conversation on releasing AAA first-party games.
Yeah, in terms of this, like, they're saying, hey, we're working on it, and they haven't delivered it, and Xbox is like, hey, we're working on it, and they haven't delivered anything. That a complete agreement there. I just think based on the R&D going into it and based on what we heard, we're not going to get anything from their live service stuff for like a year or two. Which is them dropping the ball, because that, if they're going to stick to the 2026 deadline, that means they're going to release like 12 games in 2 years, and that's not going to be good for them.
It's going to be an oversaturation.
Yeah, and then it's going to be like only the strong will survive, and then that's when studios are going to close. You know, they're like, oh, these games didn't hit. But
and then the same narrative is going to happen and be like, oh look, Microsoft bought Firewalk and closed them in 4 years. Sony bought Firewalk and closed them in 4 years. Sony bought Haven and that was a dud and they shut it down. Like, you know, like the same thing that you're going to point about when you're going to be able to point to what everybody points to Microsoft about Scalebound and in all those games, like that same narrative is going to happen to Sony because you can't go 12 for 12. You can't.
No, you can't. Especially the audience is only so big, and you're gonna have competing things. It's basically what Doom Titanfall the first 2 times it came out is because it released within like a month of Battlefield.
Or when they wedge Titanfall? Yeah, they wedged Titanfall, Battlefield, and EA did another one like the Battlefront. Weren't they all like in the same quarter? Battlefront 2.
I think Battlefront 2. No, Titanfall 2 was a little separate from that. But but I know what you mean. It was still within like the same like sort of like sphere.
They're just like, okay, everything's ready, go. And it's like,
but the ultimate failure is like the Battlefield Titanfall one. Like, because those released within a week of each other. And it's like, why are you doing this? But do you think like them putting this money into it? Because there's a lot of like doom and gloom of like, oh no, they're changing to a live service company. But like 60% of their R&D budget's probably still going to like hardware and single player stuff. But like I would imagine a lot of this is them looking at the market in terms of like, hey, we might not have Call of Duty forever because Xbox is going to take it away. But also like, it's not good that Call of Duty is so much of our money because you don't know, like Call of Duty earns them a ton of money. But at a certain point, it's just like they can't rely on Call of Duty forever, either through like the fault of the franchise itself or because now their competitor owns it. So
I think it's a combination of both because I want to ask you a question. It's July 18th. How many times have you, not your partner, how many times have you turned your PlayStation on this month?
I downloaded Oxenfree yesterday.
Okay.
And I installed a new SSD in it 2 days ago.
Okay.
But probably like 5 times. Like honestly, I haven't been on Xbox either. I've been on the Switch most. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not picking on your cadence, but I'm just saying you classify yourself as a video game player, correct?
Yeah.
So if you really haven't played anything this month on your PlayStation, what do you think the average gamer that's a notch or two below you is doing right now?
No, there's always
And I think whether there's Sony people, all these Sony fanboys are like, well, we have God of War and we have Gran Turismo and we have Spider-Man 2. Like, yes, so you have a 10-day window 3 times a year where your users are up. Like, whatever little chart, whatever little graph that Jim Ryan walks by every morning, he doesn't see it going up right now.
Well, and that's something during the FTC trial popped up where, like, I believe it was either Jim Ryan or some representative from Sony mentioned that, like, hey, a good chunk of the Call of Duty player base just buys Call of Duty. That's the only game they're buying this year. Maybe one other game, maybe a sports game. And I think if you're PlayStation, regardless of the Microsoft thing, you look at that and they're like, oh, we make billions of dollars from Call of Duty. What if Call of Duty's gone tomorrow? What if Activision were telling the truth when Bobby Kotick's like, yeah, we might take a couple years off from Call of Duty, and switch up that cadence. If you're PlayStation, you're like, oh shit, that means we're not going to make $2 billion next year because Activision took a month off. So PlayStation
wants you to touch that symbol on your controller, ideally every day.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
And it's not happening.
Yeah, and
I might do it every day for 14 days while I'm playing Horizon. Or I might do it out of 21 days. I might do it 13 or 14 out of 21 days as I'm trying to play. But then I beat Horizon and I'm like, okay, yes, even for me, like I'm not playing Destiny as much as I used to because the game is a little stagnant. So, like you can have as many PS Plus users as you want. But if you see the little spike on the first of the month of all of a sudden you're, because there's a couple new games on Plus that people go interact with and download and maybe play it on a day or two and be like, yeah, you know what, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be, or like, where's the Warzone player? Like, are they on PlayStation? Are they on Xbox? Are they on PC? Are they on a combination of all three?
And I think that's why PlayStation's so motivated to go down this hole of like researching and figuring out live service games because they see that of just like, shit, it would be great if we got this person to turn the game on twice a month or pick up a second game or pick a battle pass up,
or just be on our network.
Yeah.
And like let me advertise something on the loading screen of one of my live service games telling you to go to the store and see and pre-order Spider-Man 2. And if you don't think that's going to happen on PlayStation, you're high.
Yeah. And in terms of like the R&D stuff, like PlayStation didn't decide this on Friday when the deal closed.
Right.
Like this takes years of like allocating funds. And
some intern didn't go in there and say, "Hey guys, I need $2.5 billion."
Yeah. So this is stuff that's been in the works in a while, and I think it goes back to Kotick when he was doing his stupid interviews. Being like, we might take a year off, we might take 2 years off from Call of Duty, and I'm sure PlayStation just looked at that and we're just like, that's multiple billions of dollars that we can't guarantee is going to be there next year. And we can't rely on it being there every year, so we need to start developing our own live service games. It's just a matter of
this just proves direct box software sales doesn't cure all. Because if it did cure all, Sony wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't cure all. It's one of those things where it's just like they can sustain the current business that they're doing, and will be fine.
But they're leaving billions of dollars on potential billions of dollars,
and that's how they're
table.
seeing it, and that's the problem. And also, capitalism business that it has to go up every year, and they've probably seen like the saturation of like, oh, we can keep releasing the single player games, and we'll be fine. We can sustain our current business, but does that mean year to year growth, which is what they're all looking for?
Well, and the thing that we run into right now is like, if I told you tomorrow, Michael, that another God of War was announced and it was in development, comes out next year, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your excitement right now?
8, 7.
An 8, 7. Okay. Now, if Factions announced tomorrow and it comes out in 6 months, what's your excitement level?
Man, that's a hard one to say because like I want to say 10, but because of all the shit that I know, I'm like that's like a 6 or 7.
Well, just remove that from it. A new live service game that piques your interest, or I don't even like I don't even know what I could like. I'm trying to think of what I could get to that could like I don't know. Like they signed a massive contract with the WWE and all the wrestling companies, and they make this
I don't know. If
battle
you tell
royale.
me Rumbleverse comes back, I mean AEW is releasing a battle royale. But like I don't know. Because of how I play, I'm not the biggest live service fan. I'm not the biggest multiplayer fan. So anything you say, I'm probably going to be in like that 7 or 8 range. But if you told me Last of Us 3 is coming out in 6 months to a year, I'm a 10. Like the single player stuff still does a lot for me, and I think that's what a lot of people have fears of just like, are we going to lose those single player experiences? And I don't think Sony's crazy enough to like completely abandon what brought them to the dance.
But when do you stop though? Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I was like,
I clicked on the wrong button.
Okay.
Are
we?
But when do you stop? Yeah.
Okay.
When do you stop though? Like, is it Uncharted 5? Is it 6? Is it 7? Is it Last of Us 3? Is it 4? Is it God of War? How many times do you go to the God of War well? How many times do you like before you have to do something like different? I think that's part of the reason why PlayStation had to purchase Firewalk and had to purchase Haven and had to purchase Housemarque, because it's not Housemarque. Is it Housemarque?
They bought Housemarque.
Yeah. Because these studios can do things differently that Sony was unable to do. For the most part, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Last of Us, Infamous, Uncharted are all the same format.
Yeah, like third-person, open-ish world games, those experiences. Yeah, but then when you look at the games they announce are third-person shooters, and like
well, we don't know. Like Firewalk's got to be first-person because of the pedigree of the studio. It has to be.
I hope so.
I don't know what Haven's game is because
it looks third-person.
So it's just
fair games. Let me look it up.
Yeah, it's just very, it's just very, very weird and very vague right now in terms of like the direction that they're going with it, and it's just so hard to tell. Of like, they're obviously like they want both, and I don't know if you can have both. Like, you either do single player stuff really, really well, or you do live service stuff really, really well. Because otherwise, you look at what EA has attempted to do and what they failed with. I mean, we got, what was that Battlefield game? The cops and robbers game. That was awful.
Hardline. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But I think what PlayStation is doing smart, which I hope people are still listening to this conversation because we've been like mean to PlayStation. So I'm hoping people are still listening because I'm going to be nice to PlayStation. I do think it's smart that they've been acquiring new studios to work on these projects as opposed to what they find themselves in with factions where you force a single player studio to make a multiplayer game and it's not working. Like, I don't see PlayStation going to Insomniac and being like, get away from that Spider-Man shit. We need multiplayer.
We've seen Insomniac take a swing at multiplayer.
Yeah, we've seen
it wasn't good.
Yeah, no, but like, and PlayStation saw that and was like, that's not your thing. Sucker Punch dabbled in multiplayer with Ghost of Tsushima, with that Legion or whatever.
Yeah, yep.
But I fully expect the next Sucker Punch game to still be a single player game. But like when you come to these new studios, there's no expectations and you can build them from the ground up. So like those are the ones that I think this R&D money is going to go to. Is like building those studios up.
No, I'm not saying that they're doing a bad job. It's just that at the same time, going to new studios, you have no track record.
And like, I think that's the best you can hope for in terms of like live service games. Like I don't want them to force
part of Destiny's success was Halo's success, though.
Yeah, you could say that, but also there's so many people have like come and gone at some of those studios that it's.
No, but I'm just saying part of their success is the creators of Halo made this game.
And
just
like you can say
when they do release factions, the creators of Last of Us and Uncharted are doing this. They're gonna piggyback on that hard. Yeah,
but also when it comes to like Concord or the Sometimes Monsters people, they're gonna be like from some of the people that
not a chance. That it's not going to say like not on a trailer. They're not going to say
not
former
trailer,
Bungie developers.
But in like blog posts.
No, but I'm just saying. Like I mean, it was Destiny's advertisement at its core was the creators of Halo are making a new game.
Yeah, but I think they'll lean into some of that. Or when they announce like people come to their studio, like when Naughty Dog hired like League of Legends people. Or Riot people, they like put that in a blog post like, oh, this person's from Riot, they know how to do multiplayer games. Like that stuff's gonna happen. It's not gonna be in a trailer because there's like some legality with that. But like I think it's even though the studios don't have a track record, there's still pedigrees with all these studios, and I think it's at least it gives me confidence that they're not going to like nosedive some of their prestigious studios. The Naughty Dog thing's its own like Pandora's box, but at least we know Naughty Dog's working on a single player game, in between that. So I don't mind.
But it'd be the same thing if Sony decided to get into other sports markets and Sony San Diego's helping them in making a basketball game. They're going to be like, the people that brought you the show are now bringing you NBA.
Yeah.
And
they used to make a okay NBA game.
Right. Because Sony San Diego used to be 989, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Sony's going the right way. I just in terms of like
they
building up the studios.
Need to get there faster.
Yeah, they need to get there faster, and they also need to reevaluate how many they're going to throw at one time. Because I would rather them put out like
we're at the
3 or 4 really good experiences.
Okay. But here's the deal: it's almost August 1st of 2023. Do you see any of these 12 live service games hitting before the end of this year?
Unless they have a surprise one, maybe one, but I don't.
Okay, so that leaves. Let's give them one. That leaves 11 games that we released over 3 years.
And I hope with this stuff they look at like that's the game.
3 games a year, like on top of Wolverine, Ghost of Tsushima 2, like.
They said released, but I have a feeling like because Sony's released multiplayer games in beta, and then they're like, "No, we're not doing this." Like it's been a while since they've done that, but like I can see them testing. Like I don't think all 12 games are coming to market.
It's a different Sony, but we also got a Change, a Drawn to Death, Guns Up, and something else that all kind of came out within the same quarter, and they all just killed each other.
Yeah,
and they were all terrible.
Yeah, that's also the key. Is like I don't.
They were terrible, and they all released in the same thing, and they just fell into this pothole in this pothole and just sunk.
Yeah, I would hope PlayStation's like vigorous, like this needs to hit on Metacritic style will apply to those multiplayer games, those live service games of just like, hey, we're not going to release.
I think the only way the only way you can get away with it is if you release like an RTS and a shooter in the same quarter, like 2 completely different genres.
And I think that's what PlayStation needs to do. They can't just put all their buckets in the third person or first person genre. Yep. They're going to have to like, hey, is there something we could do with MLB The Show that'll make it more live servicey or
I mean, I'm just using them as examples, but we need an RTS style. We need a card-based style. Maybe we need a tactical, like a tower defense kind of thing. Like they need to be they need to figure out on top of a third person action oriented something and a first person shooter.
They need to spread it out. Like if this turns out, we look back in like 4 years.
Minimum 4 different genres of these 12 games.
If we look
minimum
back 4 in 4 years, even though it's like we're 3 years away, if we look back in 4 years and we're like, they released 8 shooters, it's going to be like, this was doomed from the start. But if they come out and are like, they released 4 shooters, like 3 RTSs, 2 card games, a couple platformers or party games.
Or like a racers in there,
I think that would be fine. Like, I'm sure some of that R&D is like, how do we turn Gran Turismo into a live service game? Like, how do we turn that into a legit live service game?
They tried, yeah.
But, like, from the start, not half-assing it. Not that they've half-assed that product. It's a good product, but, like...
No, but Gran Turismo Sport was, like, their attempt of, like, let's see what we can do.
But it was still, like,
they still wanted the money.
Yeah.
They wanted the cash up front. They didn't want to have the residual income. They wanted the instant income.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by
Sony's
half-ass.
always wanted the instant income.
Yeah.
So now they have to learn to accept the residual income, and they have to say, hey, like... making this balance patch could bring more players.
Yeah, to quote Kevin Nash, you can't do this half pregnant. Like, you got to go full on with this and just go for it, which is going to be very key to this. Like, they can't do a Gran Turismo Sport.
And to be fair, the counterpart of it is that Microsoft fucked Halo up.
Yeah, because they tried to be half pregnant. They tried to. I'm going to keep using that term. They tried to get the best of both worlds, and it just backfired. Both sides of that equation.
To where Halo needs to go away for 10 years, probably 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
It just needs to go away.
Yeah,
so.
And then hope that after a couple years, people are like, I really want Halo.
And then the concern that you have is, like, to piggyback on your term, is that they're trying to carry triplets with Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
Instead of just having one baby.
Yeah, and they just need to put content out, but they need to not put all your eggs in one basket, sort of thing. I'm just throwing metaphors out there, but like they need to like make sure that they're not forcing, like a Naughty Dog to like, hey, you got to be the marquee multiplayer game and a marquee single player game. They need to figure out a way to let those studios do what they want to do, and be the creative themselves. And then that's when you tell a new studio you acquire, like, hey, guess what? You're a multiplayer studio, like. We acquired you to be a multiplayer studio or a light games as a service studio, and then just build from there. Because I'm sure there's people that like got a job at Naughty Dog a couple years ago, and when they found out they're pivoting to live service games, are probably looking at their contract like, damn, like I don't want to work on this.
I really wanted to be the narrative director on massive cutscenes of, Nathan Drake and Elena arguing, and now I'm sitting here making different colored shoelaces for a microtransaction.
Yeah, exactly. There's like going to be people there at Naughty Dog that are just like, this is not what I signed up for. And that's something PlayStation's got to balance, or they're going to have like exoduses from companies. Which
I really wanted to make a cool UI crafting menu for Last of Us, and now I'm making a loot. I'm making a loot drop skin on the side, or a loot drop screen on the side of the page when you complete a mission.
Yeah, and I think that's again why PlayStation, all their recently acquired studios, or most of them, are working on live service games, because they're just like, okay, we're gonna start fresh. Anyone that joins that studio knows what they're getting into, and it's probably gonna be the strategy to go. But Dave, that is all I had for news. That was a pretty long tangent on that one.
It's been 2 weeks for me, so I've and to be fair, so like the next thing is what we're playing and watching. I haven't, I asked Michael that question about when's the last time. I haven't picked up a controller. I haven't picked up my ROG. I haven't picked up my Switch. I haven't picked up my PlayStation. I haven't picked up my Xbox in like 21 days, 23 days.
Yeah. Honestly, for me too, like work's been pretty busy. I'm preparing for a trip. I'm going to have a ton of games to talk about in the next couple weeks. If you love indie games, I'm going to be talking about a lot of indie games in the next couple weeks. But the only problem is I can't talk about them right now. And that's just kind of what I've been focusing on. So I'm watching Succession. Like watching that show because it ended earlier this year, so I'm like, good time to get in.
I've been watching the new Netflix series Quarterback, which follows Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota, which has been really fascinating because they followed them all through like last season, like at their houses, talking to their wives, talking about their day-to-day routines outside of football, and as well as going through the season. So I've really enjoyed that. That's kind of a cool like behind the curtain look. So
I feel like
you have Netflix,
you would hate to watch like the bad reality shows, but that's basically what you're watching. but because it has sportsmen, you're just like, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I won't watch a documentary about that, how you grow grain in Iowa, but I'll watch a documentary on the guy that broke his bat in 1982 baseball game. That's like now
like oh my god, this episode Patrick Mahomes goes shoe shopping. I can't wait. But yeah, no, I've been trying to play stuff that I can talk about, but I just haven't. Like next week I'll probably talk about 2 or 3 games that I'm playing. But for the most part I've just been playing on the stuff that I'm working on, and then taking care of a kitten who's knocked out next to me, and then just running around getting ready for a trip. So my playing and watching has been kind of low. And then also I've been paying attention to the writers actor strike, and then
I'm trying not to look at that because it's just going to disappoint me in September and October when I want to watch new stuff.
Oh man, so
it's bad. It's bad.
It's going to be like a year.
I know.
Of just bad TV. Like I was reading reports about
I just hope all these services we talk about have the same Nintendo, like Disney Plus, all of a sudden just pull something out of their ass that they've had. Like
they don't, Dave. Apparently, a lot of them have been reaching out to influencers to see if they can get them to do reality shows for them. So we're about to see a lot of bad stuff.
I think I might need to keep Netflix then. So.
I'm gonna start buying Blu-rays again because I need a backlog of things to watch. But I did buy a SSD for my PS5 during Prime. They were like $50 for 1 terabyte.
Oh yeah.
So I ended up picking one of those up. That's super easy. That's like the easiest hard drive install.
Yeah, it was, other than the waiting for the formatting, but
yeah. And then moving everything from my external SSD. I'm basically like swapping a bunch of SSDs around my house because like my PC ran out of space. But I was using an external SSD for my PS5, which now I can put in my PC since I bought the the M.2 for my PS5. So I'm gonna have
instead of just buying 2 of those and putting the other M.2 in your PC.
Nope, no, I'm cheap. I'm repurposing. I'm just reflowing everything. And then I repaired a PS1.
I saw that in Discord.
I bought a $10 broken PS1. Turns out I just need to take it apart and clean it, and I have a really nice.
So are you
PS1.
gonna command strip it to the wall behind you?
No, man. Did you see those Twitter pictures, man?
Yes.
It looks nice, but he's using
command strips hold some weight, just for the record.
But he's using I still would have wanted to screw something in, or bolt it to the wall. The idea that
I get him though. Have you ever tried to drill through brick?
No, it sucks 100%. It's terrible.
Yeah, you need a masonry bit and water sometimes. And
at that point, don't hang that shit up on the wall because I don't know about you, Dave, but I've had in the summer when it's peak humidity, a command strip just drop for a picture frame, so I can't.
I think there might be a user error on installation there, or it might be on a different kind of wall.
It might
a bad
be a
surface.
wall or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've had command strips.
You seem like the kind of guy that doesn't use an alcohol wipe or wipe the wall down before you put the command strip up.
I do the thing where they say don't put anything on it for 12 to 24 hours. But sometimes command strips fail. It doesn't happen often. It's only happened twice on me in my life.
And I know he listens. I know he listens to this, but that picture without any other context on the left side or the right side looks like his wife's okay, you get this little 2x4 area. This is yours, and you better figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
She's like, you took over our living room with Lego City. Your VR corner is over there.
Yeah. It kind of looks like that. But he's like, no, she gave me the whole basement. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't. Again, 2 command strips are broken on my life, which means I don't trust command strips to hold an entire PlayStation to the wall. But yeah, anything else, Dave?
No, that's it. So please send us questions and comments. I would love to hear what you guys want to know. I know it's been a couple weeks, so letting us know, video game related, non-video game related, sports related, hobby related, any of that stuff is always welcome, as well as letting us know what you kind of want to see from the show as we evolve. I mean, I had plenty of time to kind of think about, long term and future, what we want to do, and we're still working on some graphic rebranding, get little teases of it on Twitch as well as on Twitter of some of the color schemes and stuff that we're messing with, as well as we're just kind of out of ideas for unique content again.
I wouldn't say out of ideas. Time has definitely gotten our way of our ideas more than anything.
But just trying to figure out what we can do. If you want to see some more streams, that's fine. Just let us know what you'd want to see streamed. Because I a lot of times, at least, I mean, I have no problem streaming, but I don't necessarily want to stream what I think you want to watch. I would love for you guys to tell me what you'd like to see. Like, I've seen some weird stuff about Exo Primal lately, so it kind of makes me want to check it out because that's on Game Pass as well. Some good and some bad on that. Just trying to see that stuff. But like, I would love for you guys to say, hey, like, I think you should check this out. Share a trailer or anything like that in the whether it's on Facebook or Discord or anything. Just like, I'll try to pay more attention on Facebook and Discord as well as just trying to interact a little bit more and letting us know what you want to see. I would love to, guys tweet at Michael or tweet at the main account or post in a Discord of these indie games that Michael's playing and kind of prod him to be like, hey, can you stream it for an hour? If you get Michael streaming for an hour, next thing you know, it's 2 hours later and he's still playing. But you got to get him streaming first.
You got to keep me streaming, and you also got to be in the chat, keeping me going.
Yeah.
Because I easily just like turn chat off and just like, all right,
yep.
just focus on my thing.
But other than that, you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at the First MJC. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. We have a Facebook group and a Discord server you can check out, as well as any other links to join in with the community are all linked in the show notes. So I hope everyone had a great couple of weeks, and it felt good to be back talking with Michael today, because this is the first time we've talked like this month.
It's just been like text messages every week.
Michael's like, "Are you alive?"
He'd be like, "Yes," and I'm like, "All right, don't need to respond." He said yes.
Yeah. So he's like, "Blink twice."
Yeah. I'm gonna get Dave a life alert, so like if he gets in trouble, he can click it.
Yeah, so hopefully I should get back into like a little bit of a routine and balance. I will say that my store's been open for about a week now, and it feels really good to be in my own four walls again, and I like in my own building, in my own store with my team and doing our stuff our way. And the best analogy I can give you, I loved the store that I trained in and the people that I worked with there. But have you ever stayed with your in-laws or your parents or people have been at your best friends been at your house a little bit too long? Like, that's kind of how the training store was feeling for a little while for me. So it's kind of good you should start seeing a little bit more relaxed and fun and willing to do some stuff. Dave, getting back into the video game groove as, summer's ending and everything, which is kind of crazy to say that summer's ending, but daughter goes back to school like in a month and son goes to school in like 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks. So, all right. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.